Oh yeah!
It is unfair to pick one thing that lions do that you want to mimic when you don't want to mimic anything else they do. When lions walk up and greet each other, they sniff each other's ass. When I came in this room, you did not kneel down and sniff my ass.
Welcome back to UnCatSat. In today's video, as the title suggests, we are looking into the merits and demerits of different dietary lifestyles. Ultimately, we will be looking at this from the Vedic perspective, because the Vedic understanding has the most complete comprehension on the subject. There's so much more to filling your belly than you might initially think, so stick around. The first thing to get out of the way is your meat eaters. If you don't have the awareness that killing is wrong, then you're watching the wrong channel. For those who are still here, you will either be a vegan, a vegetarian, or a curious meat eater. Vegans obviously take the moral high ground over vegetarians. This is because, in this day and age, it is impossible to separate the violence of the meat industry from that of the dairy industry. Therefore, if you are a moral Puritan, you'll inevitably have to embrace veganism, rather than vegetarianism, on the grounds of compassion. However, veganism is not the ultimate position. The ultimate win-win scenario is to be a Prasadatarian, but we will get into that a little later. The main downer for your vegans is that they can't naturally source vitamin B12. They need supplements. Vitamin B12 deficiency can cause anemia and nervous system damage. Therefore, they have to supplement their diets with fortified foods. It's not the end of the world for your vegans, but B12 deficiency is definitely something that you have to keep your eye on. I have a mate who was at one time a full-on vegan, soapbox and all, and he proper shafted himself learning the hard way about the dangers of B12 deficiency. B12 deficiency is also why we see pasty-faced vegans.
Lads, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's not a good advert for their cause. Someone who is a good face for vegans is an animal rights activist, your main man, Gary Yerovsky. Healthy, vibrant, and very engaging, Gary has all the answers. I'd encourage one and all to check out his videos. So vegetarians don't have a problem with B12 deficiency, because they can get their B12 from milk and yogurt, both of which are in the top 10 for natural sources of vitamin B12.
When these dairy cows are past their best milking years, they'll be slaughtered for meat. But these cows can look forward to a very different future. On retirement, they'll live out their days at a sanctuary. The milk is marketed as slaughter-free under the name Ahimsa, meaning non-violence. Not only do the cows have a long retirement, the male calves aren't killed either.
Although we've seen a rise in the availability of Ahimsa, or non-violent dairy, most vegetarians do not have access to such non-violent dairy options. Therefore, for the most part, your vegans can claim the moral high ground. That is until you cross-examine vegan philosophy with the Vedic understanding. This is where we get into the subtle element of spiritual principles and dynamics. Not causing harm to other living beings is a no-brainer for the spiritually woke. Those who prefer to satisfy their tongues at the expense of an animal's suffering will naturally interpret their religious texts to accommodate their indulgences. And I'll spare you the Bible bashing on the basic ABC tenets, such as, thou shalt not kill. The object of this video is to highlight the food philosophical hierarchy whose pinnacle is Prasadatarianism. The finer sentiments of the matter are the spiritual dynamics of eating, and I'm going to keep this short. Essentially, Prasadatarianism involves cooking and offering specific foodstuffs with devotion to God and for his pleasure. Most of us cook for ourselves and at best offer up a token grace as a thank you. In the Vedic model, however, food is cooked and offered not for one's own pleasure, but for the pleasure of the Lord. That offering is also done with specific mantras and prayers by qualified devotees who are strict adherents to spiritual disciplines. The result of such offerings are that the karma, or inevitable sin, which would otherwise be incurred through the preparation and consumption of foodstuffs, becomes nullified. Not only this, the foodstuff is spiritualized and becomes what is known in Sanskrit as prasadam, which translates as mercy. Someone who only consumes sanctified foodstuffs or prasadam is known as a Prasadatarian. This is the highest ethical eating position. The Vedas highlights 6 transformations that take place in a living entity. Wherever these 6 transformations are present, we should know that the soul is present. The 6 transformations are birth, growth, staying, production of byproducts, dwindling, also known as old age, and death. So plants, believe it or not, actually have souls. Technically then, there is violence or karmic debt incurred when killing plant life. In the Vedas, 5 areas are highlighted as being places where violence is caused unknowingly to other living entities in the domestic setting. They are, in the use of the pestle, fire, grinding instruments, water consumption, and in sweeping. One may argue that, because these things are unavoidable, we don't need to worry about any minuscule sin incurred from killing microbes in water consumption and entities which are killed in the fuel consumption process. However, such provincial consideration is short-sighted. We live in such an atomized world that most of us don't understand the spiritual principle and duty of connecting with the divine through sacrifice. Nourishing the body, in its purest expression, is a spiritual right. In other words, the ancients are saying that it is the highest consideration to offer one's food to the divine. On the most primitive level, it is a gesture acknowledging where your food comes from. And, from top-tier enlightenment, one is not even cooking to satisfy his own taste buds, but rather one is cooking to satisfy God. Such top-tier consciousness is Prasadatarianism. In the Vedas, specifically, in the Bhagavad Gita, there are lists of what foodstuffs are offerable to the divine. Basically, God is a vegetarian who eats dairy, but doesn't eat onions and garlic, because such items are restricted due to them having a detrimental effect on the consciousness of those who are aspiring for spiritual perfection. Ultimately, God only tastes the love and devotion of his devotees. An ancient history is that of the devotee, Vidyarani Devi. When Krishna visited her house, in pure devotion, she offered him bananas. However, due to her internal absorption, she peeled the bananas, threw away the fruit, and fed Krishna the peels, and Krishna happily ate them. When her husband returned, and he expressed his astonishment, Vidyarani Devi heard his voice, and returned to external consciousness. At that time, she started offering the fruit properly, and threw away the peels. However, Krishna was happier eating the peels, as they had been offered in pure absorption and devotion. One should not eat prasadam, but rather, one should honor prasadam. And, in such a spiritually awakened condition, the Prasadatarian benefits himself, and others too. This is the true platform of non-violence. All others partake only in sin. Om, Cat, Sat.
Let's do it.
Oh yeah!